Hello, you guys, and welcome back to Hot Girls Eat Carbs. I'm your host, Brittany McChrystal, and I am so happy you're here. This is your cozy corner of the internet where we chat all things health, wellness, and sustainable weight loss. So if you've been here a while, you know that I had just turned I was about to say I just turned 20. All right, hold the phone, you wish girly. I just turned 30. And honestly, hitting that milestone made me really reflect on where I started and how far I've come, and all of the lessons along the way. Because the truth is, 10 years ago, I couldn't have even imagined being here. Back then, I didn't feel in control of my life. My health wasn't where I wanted it to be, and I had a really complicated relationship with food. And I definitely was not confident in myself. But fast forward to now, I've lost 27 kilos, rebuilt that relationship with food, and created a lifestyle that feels balanced, joyful, and aligned with who I am. And trust me, younger me would never have believed this was possible. So I thought, what a better way to celebrate turning 30 than to share the lessons I've learned so far. These aren't just about weight loss, they're about travel, they're about building confidence, they're about creating habits that actually last, and about designing a life that feels good from the inside out. Because I know we really love to go deep here, and I'm not just about to skim the surface. So I am going to split this into 2 episodes. That way I can actually share the stories behind each lesson instead of just rattling them off. And today we're going to dive into the first 15. If you have been enjoying the podcast recently, please take the time to review the show and leave a rating. It really helps more than you know. So this is a bit of a longer one, so I'm going to get straight into the juice for you guys. We are kicking off with number 1. Small steps compound into massive changes. When I first started my weight loss journey, I tried to overhaul my entire life in a week. I did every drastic measure you could think of. Cutting sugar, cutting carbs, going keto, cabbage soup diets, fasting, and nothing stuck. I'd be good for a few days and then completely crash and feel like a failure. It actually took me nearly 10 months of this back and forth to realize that I was going in circles. The turning point was when I pulled it right back. I decided to focus on just one thing, walking 10,000 steps a day. That was it. And for the first time, it felt achievable. And once I built that habit, I started looking at my food. Not cutting everything out, but making small swaps. More protein, bigger portions of vegetables, still eating the meals I loved, and the weight started to come off. The more results I saw, the more I wanted to keep going. And it wasn't about drastic change. It was about the small steps repeated constantly. That added up to massive transformation. And it didn't feel like much then. It felt so slow. And I remember thinking, am I ever going to make it? But now I look back and see how much those small steps actually meant. Number 2, walking is the most underrated form of exercise. So at the beginning of my journey, I honestly didn't think that steps mattered too much. I thought the only way to see results was to be in the gym, dripping in sweat, pushing myself until I was exhausted. And because of that belief, I overlooked walking completely. It just felt too simple, too easy, like it didn't count. But when I finally committed to 10,000 steps a day, everything shifted. Walking was the first habit that felt achievable, something I could stick without burning out, and it didn't feel overwhelming or intimidating. It was just me putting on my shoes and moving. And the one decision became the foundation of my whole transformation. The more I walked, the more I noticed changes. My mood improved, my energy shifted, and without even realizing it, I was burning calories in a way that I didn't feel like a punishment. Walking also gave me something I didn't expect: space to think. So many of my breakthroughs, ideas, and even mindset shifts happened while I was on a walk. So if you're at the start of your journey and workouts feel overwhelming, just start with walking. It might not sound glamorous, but it's what kickstarted my entire transformation. 27 kilos lost, a whole new lifestyle, all because I built my foundation on something as simple as steps. Number 3, perfection is not the goal, consistency is. For so many years, I lived in this exhausting all or nothing cycle. If I slipped up once, I'd spiral. If I had one unplanned meal, I'd tell myself I've ruined everything. so I may as well give up and binge the rest of the week. And then on Monday, I'd start again, convinced this time I was going to be perfect. That mindset kept me stuck, and I genuinely believed that to see results, I had to get it right 100% of the time. That if I wasn't following my plan perfectly, I had failed. But here is the thing. Nobody is perfect. Not one single person. And trying to be perfect was the exact thing that was holding me back. What changed everything for me was when I started focusing on consistency instead. I stopped obsessing over doing everything perfectly and started asking myself, am I showing up most of the time? And when the answer was yes, even if I had a slip up here and there, I realized that's what moved me forward. Progress doesn't come from perfection. It comes from persistence, from doing the small things over and over again, even when it's not flawless. Once I let go of perfection and leaned into consistency, that is when I saw the results. Real, sustainable results. Number 4, food is fuel, but also joy. There was a stage in my life where I felt like food was the enemy. I demonized it. I told myself that carbs were bad. I skipped meals to make up for overeating, and I avoided eating out because I didn't trust myself around food. And while on the surface, that may have looked like discipline, but the truth is, it actually made me miserable. Restricting so hard only led me to one place, binging. The more I cut out, the more I craved. It would last a few days, maybe a week, and then I'd swing the other way completely and eat everything I had been avoiding. It was this constant cycle of restriction and guilt, and it kept me stuck for so many years. Now my whole perspective has changed. Yes, food is fuel. It's what nourishes my body, gives me energy, and helps me perform in the gym. But food is also joy. It's culture. It's connection. It's sitting at a table with your family. It's trying new things when you travel. It's celebrating birthday with cake. Food is so much more than just calories and macros. And that is why I'm so passionate about still eating the foods you love. It's why I recreate comfort foods into healthier versions, not to strip the joy out of them, but to make them work for you and your goals. That way, you can eat in a way that makes you feel satisfied and full without ever feeling like you're missing out. Because the truth is, a healthy lifestyle isn't about fearing food. It's about enjoying it in a way that supports you. Number 5, balance will keep you going long term. One of the biggest lessons I've learned in my 30 years is balance isn't optional. It's essential. And I had to learn that the hard way. Like I said in the last ones, I'd throw myself into these super strict diets. I'd cut out everything bad. I'd follow rigid meal plans, and I'd be so disciplined that on the surface, it looked like I was doing amazing. But it never lasted. Why? Because it's not real life. Real life has birthdays. It has holidays. It has dinners out with friends. It has cravings and late night snacks. And every time one of those things came up, I'd feel like I had ruined everything. That guilt would spiral me straight back into that all or nothing mindset. What I eventually realized is that if your plan doesn't leave space for balance, it's not sustainable. You can white knuckle your way through a diet for a few weeks, but at some point, life is going to happen. And if your approach can't handle that, you'll burn out and give up. Now balance keeps me going. For me, it means eating mostly whole, nutrient-dense foods that nourish me, but also making space for the things that I love. Pasta, chocolate, meals out with friends, because when you learn how to fit those in without guilt, you never feel like you're missing out. And that's the key. Balance is what makes this a lifestyle, not just another diet. It's what allows you to stay on track, not for weeks, but for years. Number 6, you don't need to earn your food. For so long, I had this toxic belief that food had to be earned. If I ate pizza, I'd drag myself to the gym for an hour of cardio. If I had dessert, I'd tell myself I had to skip meals the next day. And if I didn't work out, I'd convince myself that I didn't deserve to eat properly at all. It was this exhausting cycle of punishing myself for eating and using exercise as a way to make up for my choices. And not only was it unsustainable, it completely warped the way I saw food and movement. Exercise wasn't about strength or energy or feeling good. It was punishment. And food wasn't about nourishment or joy. It was guilt. But here's what I know now. Your body doesn't work like that. Food is not something you have to earn. Exercise is not something you use to punish yourself. Your body deserves to be fueled every single day. no matter what you ate yesterday. The moment I let go of that I need to earn my food mindset, it was like this massive weight lifted off my shoulders. Exercise became something I did because I loved how it made me feel. Strong, clear-headed, and capable. Food became something that fueled me and brought me joy. Letting go of that old belief was one of the most freeing feelings I have ever done. And it's a big reason why I was able to build a lifestyle that actually lasts. Number 7, weight loss doesn't magically fix your body image. Here's something that nobody tells you. Losing weight doesn't guarantee you'll love your body. I hit my smallest size and I still stood in the mirror and picked myself apart. That is when I realized confidence doesn't come from the scale. It comes from the way that you think about yourself. But here's what actually happened. Yes, I lost 27 kilos. I got down to the smallest size I'd ever been in my adult life. And I still picked myself apart. I still stood in the mirror and focused on every little thing I didn't like. I still compared myself to other women and I felt like I wasn't enough. That was a big wake-up call for me because it showed me that body image is not about the way you look. It's about how you feel about yourself. If you don't work on your mindset, if you don't practice self-acceptance, the number on the scale won't change the way you see yourself. You'll keep moving the goal point, chasing enough but never feeling it. I had to learn that confidence doesn't come from weight loss alone. Yes, losing weight can make you feel healthier, more energetic, more comfortable in your body, but true confidence comes from how you speak to yourself, how you treat yourself, and how you choose to show up in the world. And that is why now, when I coach women, we don't just talk about food and workouts. We talk about mindset, because if you don't address the way you feel about yourself, no amount of weight loss will ever make you feel like it's enough. Number 8, discipline feels hard at the start but becomes freedom. Discipline gets such a bad rep. People think it's about restriction or rules, but the truth is, discipline is what gave me my freedom. Planning my meals, tracking my steps, having structure, those little disciplines didn't cage me. They freed me from the constant stress of guessing. And what I didn't realize back then is that discipline is the exact thing that gives you freedom. At the start, yes, it feels uncomfortable. It was new. We're not used to holding ourselves accountable. And of course, it feels easier to just wing it. But every time I stuck to those small disciplines, writing down what I ate, planning my day, making sure I hit my steps, it gave me clarity. Instead of wasting energy wondering if I was making progress, I knew I was. Instead of stressing about what to eat, I already had a plan. Instead of feeling guilty about skipping workouts, I had structure I could rely on. And that is what actually freed up so much mental space. Discipline isn't a punishment. It's not a cage. It's a foundation. And once I leaned into that, I realized discipline wasn't about restricting my life. It was about creating a life where I didn't have to constantly second guess myself. A life with more energy, more confidence, and more freedom than I had ever had before. Number 9, you are capable of more than you think. If you had told 20-year-old me that my life would look like this now, that I'd run long distances, that I'd lift heavy weights in the gym, that I'd step into a Muay Thai ring, build a business from scratch, lose 27 kilos, and change not only my body but my entire lifestyle, I honestly would have probably laughed in your face. Back then, I didn't believe that I was that person. I didn't think that I was athletic. I didn't think that I was disciplined. I didn't think that I had what it took to change. I had already written this story about myself that said, this is who you are and this is all you'll ever be. And because of that, I set really small limits for myself. But the truth is, your potential is so much greater than you realize. You won't discover it by sitting there and thinking about what you can or can't do. You'll discover it by trying, by showing up, and by giving yourself the chance to prove yourself wrong. Every milestone I've hit in my journey has come from doing something I didn't think I could do. And every little win, my belief in myself grew. That is how confidence is built. Not by waiting to feel ready, but by doing the thing anyway and surprising yourself with what you're capable of. So if you're listening to this and doubting yourself, remember, the version of you 5 years from now is capable of the things you can't even imagine yet. You just have to give her the chance to show you. Number 10, tracking habits gives clarity, not obsession. For the longest time, I was convinced I was doing everything right. I'd tell myself, I hardly eat anything. Why am I not losing weight? Or, I'm always moving. Why don't I feel fitter? But the reality was, I had no actual proof of what was going on. I was just guessing. And I was guessing wrong. When I first started tracking my food and steps, people worried I'd become obsessive. And honestly, I worried about it too. Tracking has such a reputation for being restrictive. But for me, it did the opposite. It gave me freedom. It was like turning the lights on in a dark room. Suddenly I could see the truth. I realized I was undereating during the day and then overeating at night. I realized my steps weren't as consistent as I thought. Some days I barely moved. I could finally see patterns, what was working and what wasn't. Tracking didn't make me feel controlled. It made me feel empowered. It gave me the data I needed to make better choices. And it showed me that I didn't have to be stricter, I just had to be more aware. And that's the biggest lesson here. Awareness is always the first step to change. You can't improve what you don't measure. Once you have the information in front of you, you're no longer stuck in that confusion or guilt. You're in control, and you can actually move forward. Number 11, cooking at home is the ultimate act of self-care. The kitchen used to feel intimidating for me. I thought cooking was complicated, time-consuming, and honestly a little boring. It felt easier to grab takeaway every night, even though it left me feeling sluggish and guilty. Food was something I relied on, but I didn't feel in control of, and it wasn't something I enjoyed. That shifted when I started cooking at home. At first, it was just simple meals, nothing fancy. Even though small steps completely changed my relationship with food, suddenly meals weren't something to fear. They were something I could create. Cooking became an act of self-care. Every time I made myself a nourishing meal, it felt like I was saying to myself, you matter, you deserve to eat food that fuels you and makes you feel good. It wasn't about saving calories. It was about building confidence in myself and reclaiming the joy of eating. And the best part, I discovered I could recreate all of my favorite comfort foods in a healthier, balanced way. Pizza, tacos, dumplings, all the things I once thought I had to give up became meals I could actually enjoy without guilt. Cooking turned into a tool for freedom, not restriction. Falling in love with cooking at home was one of the most powerful skills I had ever learned. And to this day, I see it as the ultimate form of self-care. Number 12, this one's a biggie for so many people. Don't be scared of carbs. They're your body's main source of energy. One of the biggest myths I ever believed was that carbs were the enemy. And I know I'm not alone in that. We've been told for years that cutting bread or pasta or rice is the secret to losing weight. So of course, I bought into it. I cut carbs out completely. And sure, for a little while, the scale went down. But I was exhausted, I was moody, I had zero energy, and I found myself constantly craving the exact foods I told myself I couldn't have. And every time I gave in, I felt like I had failed. And the thing is, I started being so afraid of carbs. It became one of the biggest fear foods for me. I had cut carbs for so long that I thought that there was something wrong with my body, but it was just that I wasn't fueling myself properly. Guys, I even went to the doctor to try and figure out what was wrong with my body because I thought I had chronic fatigue, but it was because I was cutting out carbs. And here's what I've learned now. Carbs are your main source of energy. They fuel your brain, your workouts, your daily life. And when you cut them out, you're not doing yourself a favor. You're just running on empty. These days, carbs are my staple in my diet. I eat rice, pasta, oats, bread every single day. And I'm the best shape of my life, both physically and mentally. The difference is I learned how to enjoy them in balance instead of fearing them. And that is what I always tell my clients. Don't be scared of carbs. They're not the problem. It's the extreme restriction, the guilt, the binge cycle that keeps you stuck. When you find balance with carbs, you find freedom with food. Number 13, your environment shapes your habits. One of the biggest lessons I've learned is that willpower will only take you so far. You can have the best intentions in the world, but if your environment doesn't support your goals, it's going to be a constant uphill battle. Think about it. If your pantry is full of chocolate bars and chips and foods that you binge on, of course you're going to eat them. If you go to your friends and you go out drinking 4 nights a week, it's going to be really hard to stick to your healthy routine. It's not because you're weak, it's because your environment is shaping your choices. When I started changing what was around me, everything else started to shift. I stocked my fridge with foods that I actually wanted to be eating. I created a morning routine that made me feel good instead of rushing out the door. And I spent more time with people who inspired me to be better. If you want to change your habits, start by changing what's around you. Set yourself up for success. Your environment is either pushing you closer to your goals or pulling you further away, so choose carefully. Number 14, investing in yourself is never a waste. I used to see spending money on myself as selfish. A gym membership felt too expensive. Coaching felt indulgent. Even booking travel or signing up for a course made me second guess if I deserved it. Every time I started investing in myself, it came back tenfold. Coaching taught me things I could never have figured out on my own. Travel opened up my eyes to new cultures, new foods, and new ways of living. Courses, therapy, books, all of it has shaped who I am today. When you invest in yourself, you're telling yourself, I matter. My growth matters. And you'll never regret that. The things you spend on yourself, your health, your learning, your healing, they pay you back for the rest of your life. Number 15, nobody is thinking about you as much as you think they are. I used to hold myself back because of fear. Fear of being judged, fear of failing, fear of what people might say. I thought everybody was watching me, waiting for me to mess up. But most people are too busy worrying about themselves. That judgment you're scared of is mostly in your head. And even if somebody does have an opinion of you, it usually says more about them than it does about you. When I let go of that fear, my life opened up. I applied for opportunities I would have talked myself out of. I started posting online even when I was terrified of what people would say. I stopped living for other people's approval and started living for myself. Life is way too short to sit on the sidelines because of fear. Just go for it. Even if you fail, you'll still be further ahead than if you never tried. So that is the first 15 lessons, babe. And honestly, these are just the beginning. The next 15 in part 2 are some of my absolute favorites. Lessons about rest, gratitude, confidence, and building a lifestyle you genuinely love living in. If today's episode gave you a little boost, please share it with your bestie, post it to your story, or send it to someone who may need this little inspo. It means the world and helps this community grow. And don't forget to hit follow so you don't miss part 2 when it drops. And if you're listening to this and you're ready to start building your own balanced lifestyle, one that feels good, not restrictive, my one-on-one coaching is open. You can find the link in the show notes to apply. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I love hanging out with you here, and I can't wait to dive into the next 15 lessons with you in part 2. I'll see you there.